Oopsie, my New Year's Eve prank went too far, and it ended our relationship forever.
Hello, Reddit.
This is my first time posting, and I'm using a throwaway account because I really don't want this tied to my main. Honestly, I'm not even sure why I'm here. Maybe I'm looking for support or clarity, or maybe I just want to get it all off my chest. Whatever the case, here I am, spilling my guts to a bunch of strangers on the internet. So, let me introduce myself. My name is Amelia, and for the sake of anonymity, let's call my ex-boyfriend Tom. Tom and I were together for about 5 years, and it was amazing. Until it wasn't.
Bye-bye.
Now, the thing about me is that I've always been a bit of a prankster. No, scratch that. I've always been a huge prankster. It's just part of who I am, or at least it used to be. There's something about pulling off a well-planned prank that feels good. Of course, Tom was no exception to this side of me. In fact, he was my favorite target. When we first started dating, my pranks were pretty harmless. Cute, even. I'd do things like hide sticky notes with silly messages all over his apartment, or switch his coffee to decaf without telling him, just to see if he noticed. He'd roll his eyes and give me this little smirk that I absolutely lived for. But here's the thing. Tom wasn't, and I guess still isn't, a huge fan of pranks. It's not that he hated them outright, at least not at first, but I could tell they weren't exactly his favorite thing. He's the kind of guy who values order and predictability, while I thrive on chaos. In the beginning, though, he didn't complain. I think he saw it as one of my quirks, something that came with the package of dating me. And since my pranks were relatively harmless back then, he just went along with it. He'd laugh it off, or give me a playful lecture about how I was going to give him a heart attack one day. I thought it was all part of the fun. I thought it was our thing. In hindsight, I think he was just tolerating them because he loved me, not because he genuinely enjoyed being the butt of my jokes. But at the time, I didn't notice that nuance. To me, it was just fun and games, and since he wasn't outright complaining, I thought everything was fine. Things started to take a different turn when someone, a friend of mine actually, casually suggested that I try vlogging or starting a couple's account. She said that I would totally blow up on social media with the kind of stuff I did. I remember laughing it off at first, saying that I wasn't the content creating type, and it was true. I wasn't really into the idea of putting myself out there like that. I didn't even post on my personal social media that often, so the thought of creating content seemed overwhelming and, frankly, out of character for me. But then life threw me a curveball. I got laid off from my job. It wasn't personal or anything. They were doing company-wide cutbacks, and I was part of a large group that got let go. Still, it hit me hard. And even though I was actively searching for a new job, the process was slow and discouraging. I had too much time on my hands and too much anxiety weighing me down. And that's when I started spending more and more time on social media. At first, it was just a way to pass the time, but the more I scrolled, the more I found myself sucked into this world of couples accounts, prank videos, and viral challenges. I'd see these couples pulling pranks on each other and racking up millions of views. It was like a whole new world I hadn't paid much attention to before. I realized that what they were doing was what I usually did to Tom. The only difference was that they were recording it, editing it, and sharing it with the world. And they were getting paid for it. That part especially stuck with me. Some of these accounts had sponsorships, ads, and merchandise lines. They'd turn their pranks and antics into actual careers. At first, the idea seemed far-fetched. I wasn't a content creator, and I didn't have any experience with editing or building an audience. But the more I thought about it, the more tempting it became, especially because I was unemployed at the time. I was already struggling to find a new job, and the thought of going viral and potentially never having to work a regular job again was like a siren song. I started to daydream about it. What if I could make this work? What if our page blew up? I wouldn't have to spend hours tweaking my resume or sitting through awkward interviews. I could be my own boss, doing something I already enjoyed. It seemed like a win-win. It honestly seemed like such a good idea at the time. I mean, what could go wrong, right? I had a knack for pranking. Social media was booming with content like this, and people were making a living off it. It felt like the stars were aligning for me to try something new. One day, while we were sitting on the couch after dinner, I casually brought it up to Tom. I didn't want to overwhelm him or make it seem like I was forcing him into something, so I tried to frame it as a fun idea. He gave me a look, the kind of look that said he wasn't really into the idea, but didn't want to start an argument. He shrugged and told me that he wasn't really into it, but I could do whatever I wanted as long as I kept him out of it. At first, I felt a little deflated. I had hoped he'd be more excited about the idea, maybe even want to join in and make it a team effort. But then I realized he hadn't outright said no. He hadn't told me to stop or discouraged me. In my mind, that was enough to move forward. And with that, I decided to dive in headfirst. I spent the next few days researching everything I needed to know about starting a content channel. I watched endless tutorials on filming, editing, and building an audience. I scoured the internet for affordable equipment, ring lights, a decent camera, a tripod. I even treated myself to a beginner-friendly video editing software. It was a lot of prep work, but I was determined to make it happen. I figured if I was going to do this, I'd do it right. After setting everything up, I started small with a few harmless videos. Nothing too crazy, just little pranks that I thought would make people laugh but wouldn't push Tom too far. For example, one of my first videos was a classic fake spider in the bathroom prank. I filmed myself carefully placing a rubber spider on the toilet seat, then waited with my phone in hand as Tom went in. His reaction was priceless. He jumped back, let out a startled, "What the hell?" and then laughed when he realized it wasn't real. It was perfect, short, funny, and harmless. I edited the clip, added some background music, and uploaded it to my new account. I didn't expect much, but to my surprise, it actually got a decent number of views. A few people even commented. That little bit of feedback was all the encouragement I needed. I felt like I was onto something. The next prank was a simple, switching sugar for salt in his coffee video. Again, harmless, but funny. Tom gave me his usual annoyed but amused reaction, and I made sure to cut the video before he could say anything too grumpy. At first, it was exciting, like genuinely amazing. I loved it. I mean, here I was creating content, putting myself out there, and getting attention for something I enjoyed doing. It felt good, really good. And honestly, I started to think that maybe this could actually work. Like maybe I could turn this little side thing into something big. I mean, why not? People did it all the time, right? They started small, worked their way up, and then, boom, they were influencers. I was convinced I could do it too. So I kept at it. I kept recording pranks, editing videos, and posting them. At first, I was thrilled with the response. I got a few comments here and there, a couple of likes, and what I considered a decent number of views. But then, I started wanting more. Because, let's be real, a decent number of views wasn't going to cut it if I wanted to go viral. And that's what I really wanted. I wanted those millions of views, the flood of comments, the subscribers pouring in. I wanted the kind of success that would make me a full-time content creator, the kind where I wouldn't have to stress about finding a new job or paying bills. I wanted to achieve the daydreams I'd started building in my head about this whole thing. And that's when it hit me. If I wanted more attention, I needed to do more. The harmless little pranks I had been doing were cute, sure, but they weren't the kind of thing people were going to talk about or share with their friends. They weren't viral material. So I started slowly upping the pranks. Nothing crazy at first, just little things to get a bigger reaction out of Tom. Like I did one where I pretended to lose his keys. He laughed a bit, but I could tell he was starting to get mildly annoyed. Still, I didn't think much of it because, well, it was all in good fun, right? But even with those slightly bigger pranks, I wasn't seeing the numbers I wanted. The views were still decent, but that was it. Decent wasn't enough anymore. I wanted those big viral numbers, the kind that would make my videos blow up overnight. And that's when I decided to push things a little further. I started planning pranks that were more elaborate and honestly a little riskier. Like I did one where I pretended the Wi-Fi was out for an entire day, knowing full well how much Tom relies on it for work. He was frustrated, but when I told him it was a prank, he just shook his head and walked away. Another time, I set up a fake accident where I spilled juice all over his favorite shirt. He was annoyed, but again, I thought it was harmless. Looking back, I probably should have noticed the signs. Tom's reactions were becoming less amused and more tired. But at the time, I didn't see it, or maybe I just didn't want to see it. I was so caught up in chasing this idea of success that I ignored the little cracks that were starting to form. Because here's the thing about trying to go viral. It's addicting. Once you start thinking about it, it's hard to stop. You get this tunnel vision where all you can focus on is, how do I make this bigger? How do I make this better? How do I get more people to watch? And that's exactly where I was. I did a couple more elaborate and honestly much riskier pranks. One that really stands out and makes me cringe the most in hindsight was when I called Tom during an important business meeting to tell him the house had burned down. I even went as far as sending him a fake photo of a burnt-out house that I found online. He panicked and canceled his meeting on the spot, rushing home to make sure I was okay and to see the supposed damage. Of course, when he got home and saw everything was fine, he was furious. And rightfully so. I mean, who does that? But at the time, I brushed it off. I apologized and told him it was just a joke. In my mind, it was harmless because no real damage had been done, right? He just looked at me, shook his head, and muttered something about how I needed to stop. I didn't listen, though. Even with all those elaborate pranks, though, the views were still just decent. They weren't bad, but they also weren't anywhere near the viral sensation I was hoping for. My videos were getting a few thousand views here and there, but nothing that would make me an internet star or turn me into a full-time content creator. And that's when I knew I had to push things further. Yes, I know now that it was stupid, so stupid, but at the time I kept telling myself just one big hit, one viral video, and this will all be worth it. Then New Year's Eve rolled around. I first got the idea from TikTok. I was scrolling through my feed and came across this couple who had done a prank. It wasn't exactly like what I ended up doing, but it sparked something in my head. In their video, they had set up this elaborate scheme to make one of them think they'd won the lottery, only to reveal it was fake. The reactions were over the top, and the video had gone insanely viral. Millions of views, thousands of comments. It was everything I wanted for myself. And that's when inspiration struck. I thought, if they can do it, why can't I? I didn't want to copy their prank exactly. I wanted to do something even bigger, something that would get people talking and sharing like crazy. After all, it was New Year's Eve. What better time to pull off a grand prank and start the year with a bang? I spent hours planning it, thinking about how I could make it work. I wanted it to be shocking, unforgettable, and most importantly, something that would make people laugh. Or at least, that's what I told myself. Deep down, though, I think I just wanted the attention. I wanted the likes, the shares, the comments. I wanted to go viral, no matter what it took. I decided I was going to plan a cheating prank. Yeah, I know, the dumbest idea ever, but at the time I thought it was genius. My goal was to make it as believable as possible, something so shocking and over the top that it would have everyone talking. I roped in a friend of mine to help. Let's call him Jake. Jake was super skeptical from the start. He kept saying, "Are you sure about this? This seems like it could go really wrong." Honestly, that should have been my red flag. If Jake, who is usually the chill, go-with-the-flow type, was uncomfortable with it, I should have stopped right there. But no, I didn't listen. I kept pushing him, saying it was all in good fun and that it would make for an amazing video. Eventually, after a lot of convincing, he reluctantly agreed. The plan was simple, or so I thought. My boyfriend Tom was coming back from a 3-day business trip that evening. I knew roughly what time he'd get home, assuming his flight wasn't delayed, so we planned everything around that. Jake came over that evening, and we set everything up. I made sure the camera was hidden and positioned to capture the perfect angle. Then, we staged the scene. We got into bed, stripped down, not completely, just enough to sell the illusion, and got under the sheets. The idea was to make it look like Tom was walking in on us in the middle of, well, you know. We waited until I heard his car pull into the driveway. I was so focused on how this was going to look on camera, how people were going to react when they saw the video. I didn't stop to think about what Tom's actual reaction might be. The second he walked through the door, Jake and I started making noises. Loud, exaggerated, ridiculous noises. I thought it was hilarious. Tom didn't. He came upstairs clearly hearing the sounds and burst into the bedroom. The look on his face when he saw us under the sheets, it wasn't confusion or even anger at first. It was pain, genuine, heart-wrenching pain. But that pain quickly turned into fury. Tom tore the sheets off us, and before I could even say a word, he was screaming. I burst out laughing because to me it was a joke, a prank. I kept saying, "It's a prank. Babe, it's just a prank." But he wasn't laughing, not even close. Jake, meanwhile, looked like he wanted to disappear. He kept mumbling, "It's a prank, man. It's not real." But Tom wasn't listening. Tom turned his attention back to me and told me to get out. He said he was done and couldn't take any more. He said he wanted me out of his house. Now. I froze. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. It was supposed to be funny. We were supposed to laugh about it afterward, maybe even get into a fake argument for the camera before I revealed the prank. This wasn't part of the plan. I tried to calm him down, to explain that it was all fake, but he wasn't having any of it. He said he didn't care, that it wasn't funny, that I was toxic and he wanted me gone. Jake, clearly uncomfortable and feeling like a third wheel in what had become a very real fight, mumbled an awkward apology and left. I didn't even stop him. I was too shocked to do anything but stand there, staring at Tom as he paced back and forth. We argued for what felt like hours. It wasn't even a back and forth kind of argument. He was firm and kept repeating the same thing over and over. I needed to leave. He didn't want me there. The more he said it, the more it sank in that he was serious, that this wasn't just an outburst he'd calmed down from. Eventually, I gave up. I packed a bag while crying like crazy, my hands shaking as I shoved clothes and random items into it. I couldn't believe it was happening. He called an Uber for me, which somehow made it even worse. It felt cold, like he couldn't even bear to drive me himself. I cried the entire ride to my parents' house. The driver didn't say anything, just glanced at me in the rearview mirror a couple of times with that awkward sympathy people give you when they don't know what to say. When I got to my parents' house, I was a mess. My face was red and blotchy, tears still falling as I dragged my bag up the driveway. They were immediately alarmed when they opened the door. Seeing their daughter show up unannounced, crying and carrying a bag, was obviously a huge shock. They brought me inside, sat me down, and tried to calm me down enough to explain what was going on. Once I could finally speak, I told them everything, about the prank, about how Tom had kicked me out, about how everything had gone horribly wrong. Their reaction was not what I wanted. They were angry, not at Tom, but at me. Disappointed would be putting it lightly. They asked me what I'd expected to happen. Did I really think that kind of prank would end well? Did I think humiliating someone I loved, someone I'd been with for years, was going to be funny? They didn't hold back, and honestly, they were right. The disappointment didn't stop there. Word of what happened spread fast, too fast. Some of my friends found out either from Tom or through the grapevine, and they didn't hesitate to let me know how they felt about it. Text after text came in, all saying the same thing. I was wrong. I'd crossed a line. Even Jake, who had been part of the prank, messaged me. He told me how uncomfortable the whole thing had been for him and said he didn't think I should post it at all. That was the breaking point for me. Like, excuse me? After everything I'd gone through, after my relationship imploded, after I humiliated myself, you're telling me not to post it? What was the point then? Why had I put myself through all this if I wasn't even going to get the content out of it? I suggested blurring his face, trying to find some middle ground, but deep down, I knew I couldn't post it. Too many people knew. Tom had already told me to delete every single video of him from my page. He didn't just want the prank video gone. He wanted everything. I cried and begged him to reconsider. I tried every angle, apologies, interventions, mutual friends, but he was done. He wouldn't budge. He made it clear that our relationship was over. A few days later, he had me come by to pack the rest of my stuff from his house. That was it. 5 years together, and it ended just like that. He didn't even leave room for a conversation. He cut me off completely, like flipping a switch. Blocked me on everything, no explanations, no closure. If that wasn't bad enough, my social media account got banned shortly after. The account I had poured all my time, effort, and energy into, gone. Just like that. I suspect someone reported it, maybe one of my ex-friends or even Tom. I don't know for sure, but the way it happened was so sudden and unexpected. One day I was scrolling through my posts trying to figure out what to do next, and the next, I couldn't log in. I was devastated. Everything crumbled so fast I could barely keep up. One moment I was planning a prank I thought would take my content to the next level, and the next, My relationship, my reputation, and my social media presence were all gone. It's honestly hard to process how quickly it all fell apart. I feel so stupid, all because I couldn't stop chasing views and validation from strangers on the internet. All because I didn't know when to stop, when to listen to the people around me who were telling me it was a bad idea. It was greed, plain and simple. 5 years together, and it all ended in the blink of an eye. It still doesn't feel real. It happened so fast, so violently. It gives me whiplash every time I think about it. 1 minute, I was planning pranks and thinking about content. The next, I'm single and alone. And now I have to start from scratch. I need a job. My days as a content creator are officially over. That chapter is closed, slammed shut, and honestly, I don't even know if I want to open it again. What's the point? It ruined my life. I'm back at square one, scrolling endlessly through job boards, trying to find something, anything, that will pay enough to let me survive. Living with my parents isn't exactly a long-term solution either. I love them, but they've made it pretty clear they're not going to let me freeload indefinitely. I can already feel the clock ticking before they start making those little comments about contributing to the household, or worse, charging me rent. I can't even blame them. I'm an adult. I should be able to stand on my own 2 feet, but right now, I can barely stand at all. And then there's the friends, or should I say, the lack of friends. It's like losing Tom meant losing half my social circle too. A lot of our friends I thought were our friends, sided with him. They didn't even try to hide their disappointment in me. It's not like I don't get it. I crossed a line. I screwed up, but it hurts more than I can put into words. I feel like an outcast in my own life. I can't even hang out with the few friends who haven't completely cut me off because they're all still connected to him. It would be awkward. Hell, they probably think I'm the villain in this whole situation, and maybe they're right. So I'm stuck at home most days, with nothing to do but scroll the internet looking for jobs, or just sit in bed staring at the ceiling. Some days I can't even muster the energy to get up. I feel useless, broken, and so incredibly stupid for letting my life spiral out of control like this. 5 years, 5 fucking years. It wasn't just a relationship. It was a life we were building together. We were already talking about marriage, about kids, about the future we wanted. It felt so solid, so real, and now it's gone, completely gone. All that time, all those plans, all that love, wiped out because I couldn't see past my own need for attention.
My husband has been ignoring me consistently, and I'm tired of it. What kind of man thinks it's okay to marry a wife, then act like you don't know her? He doesn't give me attention at all, and it's honestly making me very angry. I'm tired of fighting for my husband's attention and trying to make him finally pay attention to me. I don't think that's the normal way to live at all, and it's so annoying. I practically ran here to Reddit today because I'm tired of acting like a pick-me-up girl with my own husband. I thought marriages were supposed to take the effort of both partners. Why am I the one putting in 90% effort while my husband just lays back and ignores me? I literally fight for his attention every single day. It's hard living that kind of life, and it's the most mentally draining thing ever. I'm slowly making up my mind to do something that's going to have consequences. He's pushing me, and I know that when I make that decision, none of us will ever recover from it. My name is Tiana, and I'm a 29-year-old woman from Washington, D.C. I've been married to my husband Spencer for the past 1 year and a half. He's 30 years old, and I thought he was the best thing that happened to me for a very long time. Spencer and I dated for 2 years before we got married to each other. We met at the fundraiser for an event, and that was how we just started off as friends. I liked his personality a lot, and I liked the fact that he was a very jovial person. I'm also a very jovial person who is very interested in social activities, and that is why I was drawn to him. Our relationship was really okay, and we had the best time together. That's why we started taking things seriously, and then Heck proposed. I think the problem started from the first week of our marriage. The problem started that early, and it has taken a lot of patience for me to endure everything. Let me just put it this way, without me mincing any words. My husband is a family man, and he is very close to his family. Normally, that is not supposed to be a problem, but in my situation, it is a very big problem. I don't think marrying a family man is really the best decision I made, and I am still regretting it to this day. I get that he was close to his family before he met me, and it is supposed to be that way, but there are certain boundaries you have to draw once you get married. You don't just suddenly decide to get married and then you make your wife feel like she has to scramble and fight for your attention. It's not a competition, and even though it was, your wife is not supposed to be involved in any competition for your attention at all. I'm honestly sick and tired of the unnecessary jabs his family throws at me just because they feel like he is closer to them than me. I get that they were with him for years before he met me, but hold on. Isn't the wife supposed to be the first priority of her husband in the marriage? I don't get why that should ever be a question, or why his family members should come to our house and stay over for weeks. I am not even exaggerating when I say that they come to our house and stay over for as long as they want. My husband owns a very big house, and he lived in the house even before he met him. There are many rooms, and I can even tell that the house was initially supposed to be a family house. I don't know why a single man would have that many rooms. When I asked him, he just told me that he made the house big enough so that his family members can come and sleep over anytime. At first, I didn't see it as a big deal because I thought it was normal for family members to come visit once in a while. But that is it. Family members are only to come and visit once in a while. I don't get why they are coming to visit literally every 2 months and then they stay for almost a month. You guys need to see how I am typing on this keyboard with a lot of anger. I am practically fuming and pressing the keys furiously because it just doesn't make sense that my husband would let his sisters stay at our own house for almost 1 month. I mean, if they just stayed and didn't cause any trouble, I would not have a problem with it, but oh no. Have I told you guys about his sisters? They act like they are coming to seek their boyfriend, and they have every right to litter the house. There was even a time when one of his sisters brought her boyfriend to come visit. They have no respect for me, and they have no regard. I come from a very respectful family, and in our family, it is very important that boundaries are drawn. My parents even feel bad to stay the night when they visit. I beg them to come over sometimes, but they want to respect boundaries. I'm not trying to say he should not be close to his family members, but please, let the boundaries and lines stay drawn. I don't get why his sisters act like they are the ones married to my own husband. Let me also talk about how my husband completely ignores me when they are around. It's not like I'm exaggerating or saying he doesn't speak to me. He speaks to me, but the problem is that he doesn't act like we're a normal couple in front of his family. When they are gone, I get back his full attention, but he barely acknowledges me in front of them. I can't make jokes or even miss my husband in our own home, as far as his siblings are watching, or his mother is in the living room. They smile and act like they like me in his presence, but when he's not around, it's a different story. I've had to endure all these for 1.5 years, and I'm tired. He's not home as much as I am, so he doesn't understand anything I'm going through. I also have my work, but when they are around, I find it hard to go to work and leave my house to them. They touch everything they see. And I've tried talking to my husband about it, but it seems like me bringing up the topic just annoys him. He brushed it off, then asked me a very stupid question like, "Don't you like my family?" A yes or no question. What am I supposed to say? No? It's almost like he's suppressing me. So that's why I've decided to take a step back and continuously think of what I'm going to do. I have decided to share my story on Reddit and get proper advice because I've seen how other people come here to ask for advice. I'm not ready to just sit back and let him and his family trample over me. I met a man, and I want him to act like my husband. If he's not ready to do that, then I might look elsewhere. I don't care what he says or thinks, but it's not right to isolate your wife no matter the excuse you think you have for doing that. Update. I cheated on my husband. I did it, and I know you all warned me, but guess what? It's been a lot of red flags from Spencer. I am currently on a trip right now, and you guys would not believe what is going on now. I decided to have some time alone with my husband so I could truly, fully decide where he stands and what he is actually up to. When I made my last update, many of you stated that I was being too fast in my judgment and thinking too fast. Some people also said that they fully supported whatever I had to do because they could relate to my situation one way or another. To be sincere, I'm still glad that many people decided to read my story and give their various opinions. I never expected Spencer to turn out this way at all. He's almost acting like someone entirely different. I don't want to be married to someone I don't know and someone who is playing hard to get. Most people are trying to make this about me and act like I am the one being difficult. I got a lot of people asking me if I don't have any conscience for even thinking about cheating on my husband. I don't think those people understand that it is always the person who wears the shoe that goes through the problems. I'm not ready to be that person that lets anyone trample all over her. Even after what you all said, and I did not agree with most of the comments, I decided to give it a try and actually have some alone time with my husband. About 2 weeks ago, I told him that I would be planning a getaway for just the two of us. I told him 1 week ahead of time so he would have enough time to plan whatever he wanted to do. Spencer agreed, and he told me that he would have enough time to go on the trip with me. It was the first time since many years after our marriage that we got time together. I didn't actually expect him to say yes at first, so when he said yes, I made a lot of plans to make sure that everything was perfect. I was actually daydreaming and thinking that I was finally going to get my husband back. And now that I think about it, I think it was very weird that I as a woman would need to be happy just because I would have a little bit of time with my husband. It's supposed to be a normal thing, and there's no need for me to be so excited. But the situation is different, and I am literally sharing my husband with the whole of his family, so it is quite difficult to get his attention. I prepared everything, and when it was 2 days to the trip, I started buying some things and bringing them to the house so that we would not need to waste a lot of time shopping on the road. During one of my shopping sprees, one of Spencer's sisters who was at the house noticed that I had been buying stuff and keeping it in our room. I didn't think it was a big deal, and I didn't think I had any reason to hide any of what I was buying for my own house from them. But she went to go talk to the rest of her siblings after figuring out that we were going on a trip, and some hours before our trip 2 days later, they showed up at the house. Spencer was not at home by that time because he went to get something last minute. His mother actually walked up to me to ask me why I was making her son take decisions without consulting her. I am not even trying to mince words here, Reddit. It's the absolute truth, and I was very surprised when I heard her say those words. I asked her what she meant by that, and she told me that I was making Spencer go on a trip without telling her first. It was at that moment that I realized that I got married to a mommy's boy. Why would his mother feel it was okay for her to ask me why we were going on a business trip without telling her first? What difference does it make, and how is it any of her business? I didn't even know what to say to her because I did not want to end up disrespecting her. I just waited for Spencer to come back and take care of the situation. When Spencer came back, she spoke to him much more nicely than she spoke to me. It was like she was trying to poke me behind him and then get a reaction out of me in front of him. I have heard a lot about evil mother-in-laws, but I never thought I would end up in a similar situation. Her audacity was just too much. She didn't even directly tell Spencer she was upset. She just beat around the bush continuously, and then that was all. Spencer and I ended up going to the airport almost 30 minutes late because his mother had to say unnecessary things and give unnecessary advice. I didn't let her negative energy stop me from trying to put effort into the trip. I tried my best to keep a positive attitude and not soil the mood because of his mother. Spencer was like a different man after we got to the hotel. He was back to acting like the man I used to know. I was very happy to have him back, and I honestly wanted to update you all immediately. I wanted to let Reddit know that their advice worked, and he was finally talking to me again. I was like a girl in a toy shop. I don't really know how the story goes, so let's leave it that way, lol. During the trip, we went to several places and did a lot of fun things. We're still at the hotel, and we're only to leave in 1 week's time. Everything started out great, to be honest, and I had nothing to fault. It felt like a breath of fresh air to be away from Spencer's family for that long. Because I wanted to save marriage and have a clean conscience, I decided to have another conversation with Spencer. Listen, my husband is great when he is not around his family. He's the definition of sweet, and he's the husband I knew before getting married. But once he's in front of his family, he tries to put on this hard demeanor. I wanted to speak to him about that because it makes no sense for a man to do that to his wife. I get that some men want to make their family believe that they have a mind of their own and don't always listen to their wives. It's a normal thing among men, and I know this because I've heard many stories about it and have even seen some evidence before. I decided to have a conversation with Spencer, and I planned on clearing up everything. I told him about my displeasure with his family coming over almost every day. Spencer was really shocked when I said that, and he did not even try to hide his displeasure. I couldn't understand why he had to pick up a fight with me, just because I was not happy with his family. I didn't even try to sugarcoat anything, and I told him that his sisters were getting on my nerves. I don't know if it was his male ego trying to take over or just his love for his family, but he was not even ready to listen to me. He kept putting words in my mouth and trying to make it seem like I was the one being difficult. Just like he always did, he tried to use those yes or no questions to discourage me. But I was not ready to be discouraged, and I made sure that I did not stutter when I told him that I did not plan on sharing him with his family. It was a very complicated conversation, and I even began to regret taking up the conversation in the first place. At some point, I got up and tried to walk out, and that was when Spencer asked me to just sit and listen to me. He began to say things like he was sorry for inconveniencing me, and that he was just a man who was very close to his family. So I tried to make him understand that I did not have a problem with him being close to his family, and that I just had a problem with his family, trying their best to come in between me and him. I don't know why he finds it hard to understand such simple things, and why he always tries to guilt trip me and make me feel like I was bringing up unnecessary problems. It was almost like every single time I brought up a conversation, the same pattern always happened, and we ended up going nowhere in the conversation. I never realized that I would have to choose my words before speaking to my own husband. Even though the memory of everything that happened sickens me and makes me very angry, I'm just super happy that I made sure I left no stone unturned and tried my best. At least I would have enough evidence to show to anyone that dared and tried to judge me. When Spencer noticed that I was very angry and did not really want to continue the conversation, he decided to try his best and calm me down by making up excuses. He asked me to tell him exactly what his family did that continued to piss me up. I did not blame him for asking me that because I was very well aware that his family never showed their other side in his presence. They always reserved their shady side for me and treated me in a cold way when he was around. That had been the pattern for a long time, and I wanted to be a virtuous wife and just keep quiet and endure like every other woman did. But I discovered that the more I tried to make peace and just ignore any arguments, the more they tried to poke me and get a reaction out of me. If not even my own parents felt comfortable coming to my house and discomforting us. I don't get why his family should think that the house was their second home. I was so serious that I spoke to Spencer in such a harsh tone that he had to understand that I was not joking. He apologized immediately and told me that was just being protective of his family. I told him that didn't make sense and that I was supposed to be his first priority when it came to being protective. I made sure he understood that I was also someone's family, and they transferred all their responsibility to him. I made him understand that he had to step up. Spencer did not like my time because I was speaking very harshly, and I don't deny that. I had to calm down because I was really upset. He told me he understood what I was saying, and that even though I'd been overacting, he was going to try his best to make sure his family drew some boundaries. His words calmed me down a lot, and I finally told him that all I'd wanted was for him to see things from my own point of view. It's that simple, right? I also told him that I hated the fact that I have to practically plead for his attention. He tried to deny that being true, but I gave him so many instances that he had to accept my claims. That's pretty much how the conversation ended, and for the first time ever, I'd believed that we made progress in our couple conversations. It was the first time that happened in a very long time, and I didn't take it for granted at all. So it's surprising for me to realize that everything I said to my husband literally entered one ear and left through the next. He has decided to do exactly what I asked him not to do. I've tried my best, and at this point I'm honestly done. I no longer have a conscience because it's outrageous at this point. No one has a right to blame me at all. What kind of situation have I found myself in? I came on this trip and planned it because I needed time together with Spencer. But right now, it seems like Spencer is not interested in having the same time alone with me. If you all are wondering why I'm being this angry, I'll be more than glad to let you all know the messed up things Spencer did recently that just drove me over the edge. We went to the beach together, and I put on my brand new bikini. That was just barely 2 days after we had the very important conversation. I thought I'd spoken some sense into Spencer, and he was going to listen to me and try to do his best in our marriage. He seemed to comply, but he decided to do something crazy at the beach. I had my bikini on, and I even put on my sunscreen and everything. Lol. It's a big deal because I hardly ever try to do all those things because I don't have time to go to beaches. But I had to put in an effort because I wanted to get back to the way Spencer and I had a fun marriage and relationship. We had drinks, and we even had some tacos that I'd made earlier that day. It was supposed to be a fun day with a lot of minimal stress and barely any work. We agreed to switch off our phones and just focus on ourselves because we really needed that kind of vibe. I didn't think twice before switching off my phone because I didn't think anything was more important than bonding with my husband. I ain't even lying to you guys. I tried to make some flirty moves and just act crazy with him. He's my husband after all. So I didn't feel shy or embarrassed at all. Like I said, I've always been a jovial person, and I'm the type to do entertaining things and just have fun in every situation no matter what. That was just me being me. But Spencer decided to break the deal. He didn't switch off his phone after telling me that he did. He lied. Okay, if it has been a work calm that pooped up. If not, have a problem with it. He has a right to work, and his work earns him money. They were even kind enough to grant his sudden leave request. But I think the reason is because he hardly requests any leave from work at all. But in that situation, it was not a work call at all. It was a personal call, and can you guys get who it was from? His mother. Yes, his mother called him while we were busy on a getaway trip. I mean, the whole point of a getaway trip is to drop all the stress behind and just loosen up. I don't care what anyone says. I'm really calling his mother stress, because that woman has stressed me out in too many ways. When Spencer picked up the call and I found out it was his mother that called. I was very pissed off, but I tried my best to contain my anger. I didn't want to end up being that woman that just couldn't control herself. I wanted to listen to what she had to say first in case she had any important thing to discuss with him. There was nothing important at all. She just called because a close relative of theirs was in the same city we were in, and she needed Spencer to pick that person up and lodge a hotel for that person. I thought I was hearing things and that Spencer was just trying to pull my leg, but no, his mother really requested that of him. What kind of a woman requests that from her son when she knows fully well that he is busy with his wife? It was a very dumb request, and it made no sense because she knew that we had gone on a trip together. If we hadn't been on a trip, where would that relative go? The coincidence was just too much, and something told me that they had planned it. Why else would a relative suddenly visit the same city we were in? Even if it was purely coincidental and it was not planned, what business do we have with the relative that came to the city? Couldn't the relative find their way and do something on their own? Why travel to a city you know nothing about and then expect someone to come and babysit you and carry you around? At first, I was very pissed, and I tried to laugh off the anger I felt with Spencer. I tried to make up jokes and pretend like I was not really angry. That was because I didn't really expect Spencer to get up and tell me that he was going to pick up the relative. When he said that to me, it was honestly like he was from another planet and was trying to deceive me. But first, I was actually serious, and he grabbed his wallet and started preparing to leave. The man I married wanted to ditch me for a relative. It was not the best situation to be in, and I watched him like a hawk watching its prey. Why would Spencer think it was okay to just decide to leave me at a beach and try to go and make a relative comfortable? Even after all the conversations I had with him about me not liking the fact that I was sharing my husband with his family members, he still did the exact same thing I told him I did not like. I actually waited at that pool thinking that Spencer would run back and tell me he was just joking. That's just how confused and surprised I had been. Apart from being in a state of shock, I was actually very embarrassed. I started asking myself questions that I never thought I'd ask myself. I had to ask myself if my husband found some relative I didn't even know more important than me, his own wife. I did not like that at all, and it took me several minutes to get my thoughts together and decide the next step. I was so embarrassed because some people at the beach saw how he practically stood up and walked away, and I had been calling after him, but he didn't look back once. It had to be one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. It was a very weird kind of situation because I realized that I was not a priority to Spencer at all. It just meant that I did not matter to him, and he did not give me attention. He wanted me to beg for his attention and have to wait in line. I was not ready to live that kind of life and be that kind of person. I can't even describe how angry I had been that day. I was very upset, and I think I was even fuming. I did not bother parking the drinks and food we got. I just grabbed my purse and stormed out of the beach. Even though I knew people were looking at me because of the way I was grumbling, I did not care to look back because I knew that it was not going to get me anywhere. I went back to the hotel room and waited for Spencer for over 3 hours. Yet, he did not come out. I got tired of waiting, and I was also very angry. I got dressed and left the hotel room that same night. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to make sure I upsetted Spencer in a very harsh way. I did not underestimate my abilities to do exactly what I set my mind to, and in less than 4 hours of staying out and about, I had a one-night stand with a random guy. He wasn't really random because I recognize him as someone that went to the same college I went to. He was the one that worked up to me and asked me if I still remembered him. I did remember him, and that's how we started a conversation, and then it happened. I did not feel guilty at all when I woke up the next morning. My anger did not let me feel any guilt, and even now, as I write this, I don't feel any guilt at all. If a person, and especially a wife, has to constantly demand her husband's attention and respect, there is nothing to feel guilty about when she decides to look elsewhere. I'm also a human being, and I have feelings that can be hurt too. I don't think it's right at all for Spencer to ditch his own wife. Well, Spencer ditched me, and I ditched him too, so it was a two-way thing. No, I'm not sorry for doing that to Spencer, and if I have my way, I would honestly do it again. I don't think Spencer even knows or even cares. He's too busy trying to be the perfect son and staying under his family's control. I don't need that for my life, and I've tried to be that virtuous, kind woman for a year and a half, and it has gotten me nowhere. The more I tolerated, the more disrespect I got. It was like a circle that kept on repeating itself, and Spencer didn't care less. So let me tell you guys what happened after I left the guy's house. I don't want to reveal his name because it's really nothing serious, and it was just a one-night stand. When I got back to the hotel room that day, I met Spencer at the hotel. He looked very angry, and then he asked me where I had been all night. I ignored him all throughout his rants, and I just went to freshen up in the toilet. Spencer got so angry that he came to stand in my way. I tried ignoring him because I did not want to have any conversation that would make me say hurtful things to him. I knew that our marriage was literally over, and there was no saving it at all. I didn't even want to save a marriage that never had any form of respect for me. Maybe that's why I don't regret cheating on him. I realized that I also deserve to be happy, and that I don't want to spend my life chasing after someone that doesn't respect me. Marriage is not supposed to consist of one partner looking for attention and another partner trying to frustrate that partner. Spencer did not let me rest, and he made sure that we had an argument. I tried my best to avoid the argument, but since he made sure that I had no space to think, I engaged in a very heated argument with him. I made him understand that he was very stupid if he thought it was okay for him to just leave me at the beach and then go wherever he wanted to. Our arguments mainly consisted of back and forth, and then he tried to accuse me of being reckless because I decided to leave the hotel without letting him know. Imagine a man that was not even at the hotel before I left, accusing me of being reckless. I said too many things to him that I am really happy that I finally said my mind. I also told him that I cheated on him because I am not sorry, and I do not want to hide it. I knew that the marriage was over, and I was not even interested in saving it in the first place. At first, Spencer did not believe it, and he thought that I was just lying and trying to play a prank on him, because I was still very angry he left me at the beach. I did not care whether he thought it was true or not. I did not laugh at his jokes, and I told him that I was very serious. When Spencer realized that I was not joking, he punched the wall, then left the hotel. It's been over 24 hours and Spencer has not come back. I've used the opportunity to update you guys, and I will give the last update when I get back to Washington, D.C. I have an early flight and I have to get to bed now. I have also moved to another hotel room and locked the door because I do not trust that Spencer would not try anything with me. I have packed my things and I'll be ready to go tomorrow. Update 2. So when I got back to Washington, D.C., Spencer was not yet back, and I used the opportunity to pack my things and move out of his house. His family was around because they had been staying at the house even while we were on the trip. They did not seem surprised to see me packing my things, and I imagined that they already knew what happened. Or it was either that they were happy to see me go. Either way, I didn't care, and I just packed my things. Before I left, I told them they could now have Spencer to themselves, and I asked them if they were happy that he was single. His mother just laughed in my face and told me that she had never liked me from the beginning, and she was glad that I was no longer with her son. I told her I was glad too, and I needed to throw a celebration for escaping a mommy's boy. After I left the house, I went back to my parents' house and explained everything to them. They did not support the fact that I cheated instead of just walking away, but they were glad that I was finally free from such a marriage. I filed for divorce immediately after that, and Spencer sent back the signed papers barely a few hours after I sent them to him. We only saw each other in court after that, but there was no altercation. I had nothing to say to him, and he had nothing to say to me. Our divorce was finalized 3.5 months ago, and I've gone back to my normal way of life. It's much better now, and I'm back to my jovial self. I'm not sorry for cheating on Spencer because that was my own way of paying him back for the way he treated me. I don't deserve to be desperate for my husband's attention, and I am finally glad that I got out of that marriage. If time turned back again, and I was left in the same position where I had to cheat on Spencer, I would do it in a heartbeat, just like he ditched me at the beach in the heartbeat. I'm super grateful to everyone that has always been and shared their thoughts. I don't think anyone would ever truly understand how hard this would have been without having people to talk to. Thank you so much for listening to me. Goodbye, you all.